this tutorial series I will cover how to create a simple Shoutbox system that uses jQuery to refresh it every so many seconds. I assume you're all familiar with what a Shoutbox is, so let's dive right in. Let's start with the database structure. I have two tables here in the Shoutbox database. One is called users. It simply has a ID which is primary key and auto increment, but that's really not important since we'll not be adding any users. And a username, which is a 32 character long varchar, or whatever you pronounce it as. I have 3 entries in it, but this is really the only important one, guest. But really the ID of this is the most important one, 0. Since that means it's a guest post, and these are just some dummy users I entered. In the shouts table there is a bit more going on. We have an ID here which is auto increment primary key. The user ID, this is the same thing as the ID here, and we'll use that later in the tutorial to grab the username from the users table using only one query while also retrieving the shouts. Date posted is simply the date and time at which the shout was posted, and therefore it's a date time field. The message is a 255 character long varchar, and the name, this will be a guest name, so it can include a null value, and it's a 32 character long varchar. What I mean with a null value means that it can be null. So if a registered user posts a shout, this will be null since it's not going to be a guest name. So it's important that when you create this table, that you don't forget to click this null box here. So, with that out of the way, let's take a look at what I have set up already. Here we have a very simple web page. We're using jQuery here. I chose to include it through Google. You can include it whatever way you want. Here we have a Shoutbox div. This is where the actual Shoutbox will be displayed. We're not actually going to put anything here ourselves. It will be put in automatically. And here we have a form with a name field, but this will only be displayed if a user is logged in. In other words, guests will have to specify a name to use, while registered members don't. And there is this shout field, which is, well, quite simply just a shout that the user will post. So let's dive right in now. We're going to use sessions for this, so we'll need to call session start at the top of the file. Then we'll have to connect to our database, but because we're going to do this on more than one page, we're going to put that in a separate file, and I'll call it connect.php. We'll call MySQL connect, and well, since I am doing this locally, I'll just use this localhost root and no password. Then we select the database Shoutbox. It's as simple as that. Now we just need to include that on index.php. Require once connect.php. There we go. So that was pretty simple so far. Now let's go on to some very simple error checking. We need to check if the form was actually submitted in order to prevent notice level errors from being displayed. We do this using the isSet function. So if isSet post submit, then we're going to do something. Now we're working with user input here, so we need to secure that. If you watched my previous tutorial, you'll remember that I said that users are evil. You need to assume that they're trying to hack your site or do other bad things to it. So we're going to sanitize or validate that input. Since there are more inputs that we need to validate, we'll put this in a function and we'll call it protect. So function protect. We'll pass it one parameter, the value or the string or whatever you want to call it. We're going to perform a number of functions on it. First, MySQL or MySQL, whatever you want to call it, real escape string value. We do this to prevent SQL injection from being possible, so our database can't be hacked. Next, we will use HTML entities to make sure that the user doesn't input any JavaScript or evil links or whatever. So, value and ENT quotes. Once again, this ENT quotes is not strictly necessary, so you can leave it off if you want. Lastly, we'll trim it. We do this to make sure that the user won't spam our shoutbox with empty shouts like just a space or something. And then we'll need to return that value, otherwise we can't use it. And once again, we'll have to include that on our page. So require once protect.php. There we go. So let's use that function. Shout equals protect shout. It's as simple as that. Now, for some more validation, remember that we specified the shout to be at most 255 characters long, as you see here. So we need to check if this is more than that. We do that using the string length function. So if string length shout is greater than 255, your shout must be 255 characters long or shorter. And that's it. If we make it more than 255 characters, it will be much more like a guest book or something. The shoutbox is simply for short messages, not large posts. Personally, I think 255 is a bit long already, but we'll just keep it at this, and well, you can always change it if you think your messages should be shorter. Now we need to check if the user actually inputted a shout. And this is why we have used trim here, because this removes any leading or trailing white space from the string. So the user can't just input something like 3 spaces or something and expect it to work, because trim will remove all of them and the string will be equal to, well, nothing. So we need to check if the shout doesn't equal nothing, and then we'll do all the things we're going to do that are database related, related to whether or not it was a guest who posted the shout, etc. Otherwise we'll just do nothing, because I think it's pretty clear that the user needs to input something. We don't really need an error message for that. Besides, it's a shoutbox, so there probably isn't even that much room for it. And it's not exactly a very important error message. So we'll check if this post name was set, because if it is, that means it was a guest who posted it, and we'll know that we need to handle that as well. Otherwise we'll know that it was a member who posted it. I'm running out of time on this video, so we're going to continue on this in the next part of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and I'll see you next time.